Morning. It's Monday in Manhattan. Jared Wassinger here with Jason Hilgers. Going to talk a little bit about the City Commission meeting tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. in the City Commission room. We'll also be on Facebook Live, so be sure to tune in. We're going to be talking about two popular topics, I guess you could say, e-scooters, and then the Aggieville Parking Garage. And then we could potentially be talking about e-scooters in Aggieville. I mean, they mesh together a little bit. So for those that aren't familiar, Jason, the state passed some laws this last legislative session to allow e-scooters to be ridden on streets, and they have to follow the same traffic laws as bicycles do. So that state law gave cities the authority to essentially adopt that same regulation or be a little bit more restrictive or prohibit them altogether. So that's what we're going to be discussing from an e-scooter perspective tomorrow night. We're adopting those traffic laws to make them follow the same rules as bicycles, but then we're also adopting a couple other local ordinances that have to deal with riding them on sidewalks, where to park them. Right now, we don't allow bicycles to be ridden on sidewalks in Aggieville and downtown. We're going to do the same thing with e-scooters. So what does this mean, though, from an e-scooter company perspective coming into the community? That's a little bit different, and it's going to take a little bit longer amount of time. Jason, we created this term called micro-mobility devices. It's a legal term we're using, but it basically encompasses e-bikes, e-scooters, hoverboards. I think I saw you riding around one of those the other day. Segway. So what it does is it defines those, and then it says that a micro-mobility company, like an e-scooter company, Bird, Lime, the ones that you see in other cities across Kansas and in other states, they can't come in and just drop their scooters, right? They have to approach the city, and we have to enter into an agreement with them. So that's something that's going to take more debate. Right now, we're just focusing tomorrow night on making that definition and then applying these regulations for the use of e-scooters. So
the governing body previously gave direction to go ahead and change the STO to accommodate the e-scooters, but you've been receiving a lot of feedback in the community as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's from Aggieville, downtown, K-State, and where is it likely to occur in Manhattan where if you're walking down a sidewalk you may find a Bird scooter or some type of e-scooter?
That's going to be a little bit longer process. What's going to happen is K-State is a big partner in this when it comes to discussing with them where, on campus, because we imagine there's going to be a lot of students that are going to be wanting to use them on campus and then take them to Aggieville, downtown, other areas of the community. So they're a big partner that we got to work with and ask questions. Aggieville and downtown are similar. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic on those sidewalks. And those business districts, they're looking out for their customers who are trying to walk down the sidewalk and get from store to store. So we want to make sure that we can enter into whatever agreement it is with an e-scooter company, that we can enforce a lot of these safety things. There's a lot of cool things you can do with e-scooters, which is called geofencing.
Yep.
And basically, these e-scooters are electric. They're running on a digital GPS type platform. So if you start riding in a certain area and we say that we don't allow it there, it'll turn off, or it'll tell you that you got to get off a different road. Timeline, though, it's interesting. I think we're going to have some meetings with K-State, the two districts. RCPD will be a big one as well. And then go out with some type of, either call for e-scooter companies to let us know what they can offer the community so that we can make the best choice possible. So I don't think it's going to happen overnight, Jason. I think it, may go into the fall. Education is going to be a big thing too. We want to educate our citizens on how to ride these, where they can ride them, all these rules that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. That way, I think a lot of cities in the past, what happened is these e-scooters got dropped there. They didn't tell their citizens about it. Accidents occurred, and that's another thing that people are worried about is safety. So how do we set ourselves up for success to allow an e-scooter company to come in and add that second or third mode of transportation for members of the public?
So we know there's companies interested in Manhattan. We're actually adopting the rules to try to get them in place before these companies actually arrive.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, more than likely they're going to want to be around the students, that 20-some thousand population of user groups that they're very interested in. But we possibly could have restrictions going into Aggieville and downtown, so we're not in conflict with the customer coming outside of the door of, say, Varsity Donuts or Acme or Threads, where people are opening the door to a scooter. In order to accommodate that, we may actually have to either stop them at the edge or allow them in the streets, or they allow them in the streets?
They would be allowed in the streets, so you would be able to, say you're driving down, riding down North Manhattan Avenue, heading into Aggieville. You would just stay on the street, then turn onto Morrow. The rules that we have from parking's another thing too. You go to a lot of bigger cities and there's not a lot of parking enforcement, and you see them all over the sidewalk and things like that. So there's ways to work with those companies through the agreement that we would enter into, that contract that says you need to make them take a picture of the scooter and that it's in an approved rack. Right now, the ordinance that we're adopting is going to say that you can't park an e-scooter except, and this is with Aggieville and downtown, that you can't do it anywhere but a bicycle rack or an approved parking zone. So one thing that we can do is work with the districts to say, okay, where are some pockets, on the edges of your district that people can get to your district and park them in certain areas. That way they're not scattered all over the sidewalk.
And City Park, could they ride them in City Park today after the STO?
So we haven't addressed that one yet. We're going to come back with another ordinance, but we did talk to the park board, and they want to allow micro mobility devices in parks and trails, and you see them there already right now.
And I know the sidewalk on 11th Street would really like to widen. Most of the other sidewalks around City Park are wide enough to accommodate 2, if not 3 people. But 11th Street is pretty tight. I think we're a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk there.
One of the rules that we're adding with this ordinance is the speed limit on a sidewalk if you're riding a micro mobility device or an e-scooter, and that's 15 miles an hour. There's also another caveat to that ordinance, because it says up to 15 miles an hour, but you can't be impeding or obstructing pedestrian traffic.
Gotcha.
So if there's 4 people walking on the sidewalk in front of you on a narrow sidewalk, it doesn't give you the right to just zoom past them and say, hey, I'm coming by, and go 15 miles an hour. You have to slow down. Bicycles have to do this too. You have to signal, hey, I'm coming on to you on the left, and then you got to slow down and go past them. Enforcement's going to be tough, but those are some things that we're going to work with the e-scooter companies, work with RCPD on. So more to come.
Absolutely.
Won't be the last time we talk about e-scooters. Switching gears to Aggieville, Jason, it's on the agenda, talking about the parking garage and possibly working with a contractor. We're in design right now, right?
We are. So we're under contract with Olson and Walker Parking Consultants and BBN. They're helping us work through design efforts for the garage, Laramie Street between 14th and North Manhattan, as well as 12th Street between Bluemont and Morrow.
And a reminder, this is the public parking lot south of Rally House. That's a city lot that we're proposing to put this parking garage.
Yeah, our existing 75-80 stalls would be replaced with a structure that would occupy about 500 stalls in that parking garage. So we're going out for a construction manager at risk. This is an RFP process. We're looking for qualifications and proposals from these firms to provide us information in order for the selection committee to make a recommendation back to the governing body. That'll be a process in which we'll really review all the different criteria based on their experience, based on their availability, and their interest in our project. Their experience is going to be probably the primary criteria, looking for that construction manager who has experience with the municipality, building a parking garage, and working with the community like Aggieville in a redevelopment type area. Next to a university with a lot of different commercial office and residential interests in the area. So we're looking for that experience to come in and help us. This process will essentially ask for pre-construction services, so they'll join the design team and give feedback throughout the process. We anticipate the design team will reach a point probably about February or March of next year where 100% design will then be the next step for us. Once we reach 100% design, we anticipate that the construction manager would deliver a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the garage, and then we would be under contract probably by the summer of 2020, be our fast track to get construction started in Aggieville.
So Jason, people understanding kind of the process that we normally do with construction projects, generally when it comes to, say we're widening a roadway, pretty standard public works, city project, we go out, have it designed, usually our engineer says it should cost about this much money, we go out for bid, contractors come in and say, I can build that for $2 million. Right, and then we enter into that contract.
Yep.
Usually standard process. This is that vertical construction. We don't build parking garages very often, right? We don't build middle school recreation centers, which is a process that we're doing differently. So we're bringing in that contractor during the design process to help make sure that we can get to where we want to be, so that we don't just go out for bid to build this and someone comes in and says, I can do it for $20 million, and we're sitting there like, well, I don't have $20 million, right? We only have 12.
Right.
So that's kind of, is that the approach that we're taking right now up front?
It is, and the commission adopted a charter ordinance back in 2009 that gives us the flexibility to select a contractor in multiple different ways: design build, construction manager at risk, or design bid build, are our traditional three approaches that we've had in Manhattan. This allows us to have a relationship early. It also prohibits or just eliminates that 30-day window to throw something out for bid that the contractor has to pour themselves into. All of them do for a 30-day period, and then submit a price back. We've seen this work to our disadvantage in design bid build recently. We had an architect who gave us an opinion of cost for the zoo improvements for the Asian for the Asian exhibit, and I think we ended up at a $1.2 million difference between where the architect thought
over
it would
what
be
we had budgeted
and what the contractor was willing to do it for. So this process eliminates some of that, because you can set a budget and that contractor will work through a guaranteed maximum price process, but they do bid it out. So they'll go through their own bidding process in order to get the prices aligned for all the different components of the construction project,
and all the subcontractors.
Yep, and then they'll package it and bring it knowing this is the price you prefer. So we've set the budget at around $10 million, which is about $20,000 per stall. Downtown at 3rd and Fort Riley Boulevard, we built that garage at about just over $15,500 per stall. So our budget, we feel like, was within range at $10 million. We'll get feedback from the design team and the construction manager in order for us to make decisions moving forward. Yeah. But it kind of takes it out of that risk element of, we're going out for 30 days. This is what the architect said it was going to cost. Everybody waits for 30 days until the prices are submitted, and then you open them. Well, you're contractually bound to either award to one of them or basically reject them all. And then you'd have to start over. Sometimes you can reject all and get authorization to go negotiate with
That's tough, though.
the lower bidder, but even that's difficult to do. So this process, we're just excited to have a construction manager on board working with our design team and the community to give that real, honest feedback earlier on what we can afford.
So then, Jason, just again from a brief timeline, tonight we're asking the city commission to approve us going out for that request for proposals and qualifications. Over the next, few days, 30 to 60 days, contractors are going to be submitting those proposals to us.
Yep.
And then we'll select the best one and then bring that back to the commission with another contract. And then they can start working with the design, Olson, Walker, to get us to that price. And then when are we thinking the design's going to be finished, and then we're going to be ready to maybe do some construction?
So September 18th, the RFQ will go out. October 14th, they'll be due. We'll start reviewing contract submittals. November 5th, we'll have a recommendation to the commission. The 19th, we'll award the contract, and then they'll join the team. And as I mentioned, probably springtime, we'll have a final concept, and then possibly get into construction in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
I would also just highlight, this is a project that out of the gate we've anticipated tax increment finance to pay for.
Yep.
We have projected upwards of $20 million in revenue projected from the district over the next 20 years. The hotel under construction at 12th and Bluemont is a critical piece to that future revenue stream. In fact, 25% of our projections come from that hotel alone. I am excited that we've had a lot of interest from developers, a lot of good conversations with even some potential development beyond the hotel. So the more we can get early in that regard, the better that tax increment finance fund will be.
Yep.
And it'll allow us to pay for that garage in the long term.
So as a reminder, about $23 to $30 million in improvements we want to do in Aggieville. And that includes the parking garage, streetscape, landscape, all these, pedestrian, urban improvements that we want to do in the district. We're hoping tax increment finances, which is essentially as growth occurs in the district, we capitalize on that growth in property tax revenue and funnel it to Aggieville, projecting, $15 million. But then the gap that we're trying to make up with comes from the 0.3 sales tax proposal that's on the ballot in November.
Correct. It's one of the 6 projects we've been talking with the community about. That 0.3 will generate roughly $3.3 million a year. 25% of the overall revenues we generate in this community come from people that don't live in Manhattan, so it's an opportunity to shift some of that tax burden to our visitors that are clearly helping us out today in generating sales tax and transient guest tax for the community. So it's an opportunity to look at how we want to fund things moving forward. Aggieville, the garage, the streetscape, it's infrastructure that's 1983, I believe, is the last time we put a lot of money into Aggieville in our public streets, sidewalks, and alleys. It's due for a renovation and revitalization, and it's an opportunity to possibly bring our sidewalks out into the street a little bit, create a more robust pedestrian environment for the district, and hopefully then generate interest from not only our own property owners, but investors who want to come into the community and bring that commercial, office, and residential component into the district.
A lot of planning that goes along with this, but I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Starting to get there.
Parking garage, when the hotel is hopefully going to be being constructed this spring, maybe.
Yeah, they'll start drilling for pilings in October, so they'll go down to bedrock and anchor in their garage, and then build their hotel on top of it.
And we're going to come back, so basically from Bluemont Avenue to Morrow Street, which is essentially Tanner's, Taco Lucha, So Long's, Stickles. We're going to be doing that first really window of streetscape improvements and having those discussions about widening the sidewalks, more amenities. Outdoor dining is something that's come up that I think people are probably interested in. So we're going to start seeing some of these improvements. Right before that, we're going to have those conversations and look at those design concepts here this fall and into the winter.
Yeah, and that 12th Street timeline is going to be upon us quickly. There's a water line from Morrow to Bluemont that we have to build in order for the hotel to operate. That will happen this spring, and by this spring, we'll essentially go from building to building and replace all the street, sidewalk, lighting, and we'll have to have a design determined.
Yeah,
here
and
in
that'll
the next
really
few
set
months.
the tone for what Aggieville's going to look like once we start talking about Morrow and other things. Jason, thanks for the update. Quick reminder, there's some construction going on this week. Anderson Avenue, they're doing an asphalt mill and overlay, basically from Seth Child to Westport, I believe. So kind of near Jimmy John's. Connecticut. Okay, so that's probably going to be reduced down to 2 lanes. While they do that over the week, and then I believe they're doing some utility work, Jason, on Fort Riley Boulevard.
Yep, near the Wildcat Creek bridges, near Paliska. Westar's doing some utility work, so the eastbound lane will be narrowed down to 1 lane.
So maybe
for all
take
week.
A different route home at 5 this afternoon.
Yeah,
throughout
avoid
the week.
Fort Riley and Anderson. You'll have delays for sure.
Good deal. Well, again, if you have any questions, drop them into the comments section. We'd be happy to answer for them. Have a good week.
Thank you.